I've been watching and filming the red-tailed hawks in Providence's North Burial Ground each year for the last 6 years. This is the story of the nesting season of 2022. I first noticed the nest on January 9th. I'm sure they'd started building it a little bit before, but this is the first time I'd noticed it and found it. This is what they do. A hawk will grab a branch. That one it dropped, but that's what they do. They grab it with their sharp bill, kind of cut through it, and then bring it back to the nest. They use a weight sometimes to help. Here's a hawk that is actually pushing branches into the nest. We see them do this a lot. It's very rare that you actually catch them grabbing a branch and flying back to the nest with it, but occasionally. But, you know, this is what an adult red-tailed hawk looks like. They're pretty big. They're among the bigger hawks around, and they're all over the place. This is the nest in February, and you can see it's kind of thin and sparse. They started working on it for a month, but they haven't really done much with it. But, you know, as the season progresses, they pick up. Each year they start to lay eggs at a different point. Last year they started to lay eggs very early, and it was in like late March. This year they didn't lay eggs until in late April, and so the hawks fledged. But you can see they're working with the nest. They're picking up sticks and kind of shoving them in. It's kind of hard when all you've got is a beak to do that with. That's a pretty full nest. You compare that to what it looked like in January, and you can see that it's very different. They've added a lot to it. I like to catch them flying. They fly near the nest. They fly away from the nest. Sometimes you get them flying to the nest. But anyways, this is one that's flying around not far from the nest. Then we go right back to looking at the nest, working on the nest. This is the end of March already. You can see it's a pretty good sized nest. You know, very rarely, partly because of the way the things work out, you don't see two adult hawks on the nest very often. Here we'll see one take off. Here we go. From here, April 7th, the hawk was mostly on the nest, so I assume that sometime around then they started laying eggs. I don't know exactly when. You don't ever really see them that you can tell, and I was taking all these videos from 300 feet away and 100 feet below the nest, so it's kind of hard, but it looks like they're starting to sit on the nest at this point. Here, one of the hawks, probably from sitting on the nest too much, decides to take a bath. Kind of cool. Here we are on May 20th, and it actually almost looks like there's babies in there. You know, if they were starting to sit on the nest on April 7th, and 6 weeks later, it looks like there's babies hooked up. And, you know, it seems like it's tending. You can't really tell. The babies at this point are small enough that you can't see them over the top of the nest. But it does look like it. It looks like, you know, either tending the nest or ripping up something to feed them, you know. And as the babies get bigger, they get bigger pieces. So, you know, it's hard to with just a beak to cut up pieces of meat very small. There, you see what it's got in its legs. It's got a big hunk of meat. I don't know exactly what that is. Could have been a muskrat. Could have been a rat. I'm not sure. But anyways, it flies over to the nest, and right after that, this one starts cutting it up and feeding it to the babies. It's going to be quite the scene. You can see two babies in this picture. They eventually end up three, and you'll see all three in the course. But you can see how delicate it is. It's like, you know, cutting them up and giving them really little pieces, and more of it over the time. And, you know, I mean, this is the time of year they got to catch a lot of stuff because there's a lot of mouths to feed. They got 3 babies. They're bringing home stuff all the time because these guys grow. You look at them, here's a week later, and look how fast they're growing. They're actually much more mobile. They're stronger. They sit up higher. It's kind of amazing how fast they really grow. This is the same scene. Now you could see at least two, and maybe I think I got a glimpse of the third one in this video. But you can see they're just, tearing up the meat and handing it out. And they'll be doing that for weeks, and you can see the thing standing up, and it's kind of weak and wobbly, and it can barely flap its wings. You'll see them as they grow. It's an amazing set of scenes. Here you are 10 days later. Look how much bigger they are, how much more mobile they are. You can see that they're just starting to turn brown, which means that they're actually starting to get feathers. A week later, look how much darker the wings are. That really, those feathers are growing in. They're going to start flapping them more and more every time you see them. There's June 30th. Look how much bigger they are. They're starting to look like real hawks. They're starting to get the coloration pattern, the breast pattern, but they're starting to do it. Now, here we are, July 5th. A month later than last year, they're out of the nest. They're climbing around. I don't know if they're flying yet by this point. Here on July 8th, the hawk is making the feed me call. There you can see all three of the young ones at once. One in the upper right, one in the center, one in the lower left. And, they're flying from tree to tree. You can tell an immature hawk, these are now already flying all over the cemetery because they don't have the red tail. They just have a tail that's mottled brown. Again, here we are in September, and you can see this one is standing there. There's another one up in the tree, and we're going to end this video with these now flying hawks, and we'll give you one last glimpse of a hawk flying in slow motion.